If you're seeing this right now, it's not by accident. It's not random. It's not because life suddenly got easy. It's because something inside you is finally settling. Not the noise around you, not the chaos of the world, but that war you've been fighting quietly in your own chest. You've been grinding through uncertainty, carrying weight nobody clapped for, showing up when quitting would have made sense. And now, for the first time in a long time, things don't feel as loud. The panic isn't driving anymore. The vision is clearer. The pressure is still there, but it's organized. That's not luck. That's alignment. And today we're going to break down what it really means when something finally settles. Because this phase is dangerous if you don't recognize it. It's the space where growth either locks in or slips away. There was a time when everything around you felt like an emergency. Like if you didn't move right now, you'd fall behind forever. Every setback felt personal, like life was testing you on purpose. Every delay felt like disrespect, like the universe was wasting your time. You were moving fast, thinking fast, reacting faster. Not because you wanted to, but because you had to. That's survival mode. That's what happens when you're still in the storm and you don't have the luxury of slowing down. When you're hungry, when you're uncertain, when your back is against the wall, everything feels loud and urgent. You respond with emotion because emotion is the fuel that gets you through chaos. But something changed. Not overnight, not all at once. Quietly, gradually, you started pausing before you spoke, before you moved, before you reacted. You noticed that not everything required an answer. Not every challenge needed your immediate energy. That pause is not weakness. That pause is growth. That pause means you're no longer being dragged by circumstances. It means you're starting to choose your moves instead of being forced into them. When something settles inside you, you stop letting every distraction pull you off course. You stop explaining yourself to people who already decided not to understand you. You stop rushing decisions just to feel productive. You realize that speed without direction is just motion, not progress. Real power shows up when you don't feel the need to prove yourself in every room you walk into. When your confidence isn't loud, but solid. When you don't need applause to validate the work you're doing in private. At one point, you reacted because you didn't trust the process yet. You felt like if you didn't defend yourself, you'd lose ground. If you didn't jump on every opportunity, you'd miss your chance. But now you understand something deeper. You understand timing. You understand that discipline beats impulse. You understand that not every door is meant for you, even if it's open. That's a hard lesson to learn, especially when you come from nothing or you had to fight for every inch. When you've been overlooked, patience feels like a risk. But maturity teaches you that patience is actually protection. Look at anyone who reached elite levels in their field. Early on, everything is effort. They move hard, train hard, push hard, because they're building the base. There's tension in every movement. Nothing is smooth yet, but as they grow, something shifts. The work doesn't disappear, but the wasted motion does. The movements get cleaner, the decisions get sharper. Don't panic under pressure because pressure is familiar territory. Performance psychology backs this up. Studies show that experienced performers make better decisions under stress because their nervous systems are regulated. Their heart rate doesn't spike the same way. Their mind stays clear. That's not natural talent. That's repetition. That's experience. That's earned calm. You're in that same transition. Life trained you through repetition. Through losses you didn't post. Through nights you didn't sleep. Through moments where reacting felt easier than thinking. And now, without making a big announcement, you're responding instead of reacting. You're choosing long-term respect over short-term satisfaction. You're choosing silence over arguments, strategy over emotion. Before, someone could trigger you and throw your whole day off. Now, you observe. You analyze. You move when it makes sense. That doesn't mean you don't feel things anymore. It means feelings don't control the wheel. You still care, but you're not careless with your energy. You know what it costs to rebuild momentum once it's broken. There's a difference between urgency and importance, and you started to recognize it. Urgency screams, importance whispers. When everything was chaos, you couldn't tell the difference. Now you can. You invest your energy where it compounds instead of where it drains you. You don't chase reactions anymore. You chase results. Think about real-life situations. Someone disrespects you publicly. The old version of you would have snapped back immediately, trying to reclaim pride in the moment. The new version understands that dignity lasts longer than ego. Or think about opportunities. Before you say yes to everything, afraid that no might close a door forever. Now you understand that saying no to the wrong thing creates space for the right one. It's not arrogance, it's self-awareness. This shift doesn't happen to people who haven't been tested. Comfort doesn't teach control, pressure does. You had to feel overwhelmed to learn how to regulate yourself. You had to make emotional decisions to understand the cost of them. Every reactive moment was tuition. You pay for this calm with experience. Now when problems show up, you don't panic. You break them down. You don't let fear rush you into bad choices. You understand that every move has consequences, and you're willing to wait for the right one. That's a dangerous level of self-mastery, because people can't manipulate someone who isn't reactive. They can't rush you. They can't bait you. They can't distract you from your mission. You're stepping into a phase where your presence alone carries weight. You don't need to announce your mindset. People feel it. They notice how you move, how you listen more than you talk, how you don't flinch when things get tense. That's leadership energy. Not because you're trying to lead, but because you're centered. And the truth is, this phase requires protection, because once you stop reacting, life will test you harder, not to break you, but to confirm the lesson stuck. You'll be tempted to fall back into old patterns, to respond emotionally, to rush, to prove something. That's where discipline comes in. That's where you remember how far you've come. You're no longer reacting because you don't live in survival mode anymore. You're building, you're structuring, you're thinking long term. You're responding because you finally trust yourself. And that trust didn't come from words. It came from evidence, from showing up consistently, from learning the hard way, from staying solid when nobody was watching. This is what it looks like when something settles inside you. The storm doesn't disappear, but it stops controlling you. The pressure doesn't leave, but it sharpens you instead of shaking you. You move with intention now. And intention is what separates those who stay busy from those who build something that lasts. When something settles inside you, the first thing people notice is distance. They say you changed. They say you're not as available as you used to be. But what they don't see is clarity. What they don't see is how much noise you had to cut off just to hear yourself think. Your circle gets smaller not because you think you're better than anyone, but because you finally understand how valuable your time is. You realize that access is expensive and not everybody can afford it anymore. Your schedule gets tighter because you stop letting randomness run your day. You stop waking up reacting to other people's priorities. Your goals get clearer because you're no longer trying to chase everything at once. There was a phase where you said yes to almost everything. Not because you wanted to, but because you felt like you had to. You were trying to stay visible, trying to stay in the game, trying not to miss an opportunity that might never come back. That phase makes sense when you're building from nothing. When you don't have leverage yet, availability feels like survival. But over time, you start noticing the cost. You notice how scattered you feel, how busy you are without actually moving forward, how exhausted you are from pouring energy into things that don't give anything back. That's when the shift happens. You stop chasing everything and start protecting something. You start protecting your mornings, your focus, your peace, your vision. You realize that energy is currency. Every conversation, every meeting, every commitment has a price. And just like money, if you spend it everywhere, you'll never build anything solid. You start asking different questions. Does this move the mission forward? Does this align with where I'm going or just where I've been? Does this help me grow or just keep me busy? Before, saying yes made you feel productive. Now, saying no makes you feel powerful. Not in an ego way, but in a grounded way. You understand that focus is a form of respect for your future self. You're no longer afraid that turning something down means missing out. You've seen enough to know that what's meant for you doesn't need you to chase it recklessly. It meets you when you prepare. This is the same realization most successful entrepreneurs talk about when they tell their story honestly. There's always a moment where they stop trying to look successful and start building something sustainable. They cut the unnecessary meetings. They stop listening to every opinion. They spend less time explaining and more time executing. They trade visibility for progress. It's not glamorous in the beginning. Nobody applauds discipline in private, but that's where the real work happens. You start noticing that fewer people have access to you, but the ones who do matter more. The conversations get deeper, the plans get sharper, the goals stop being vague dreams and start becoming measurable targets. You're no longer impressed by movement alone. You care about direction. You care about impact. You care about whether today's actions line up with where you say you're headed. People might say you're distant, but you're not disconnected. You're deliberate. There's a difference. Distance is avoidance. Deliberateness is intention. You still care. You still show love. You just don't let everyone pull on you whenever they feel like it. You've learned that being available to everyone often means being unavailable to yourself. Think about how many times you used to stretch yourself thin trying to keep everybody comfortable. How many times you put your own goals on hold because someone else needed something. That might have been necessary once. But now you understand that overgiving without boundaries doesn't make you generous, it makes you depleted. And depleted people don't build legacies, they burn out quietly. Your priorities getting cleaner doesn't mean your heart got colder. It means your vision got sharper. You see the long road now. You understand that consistency beats intensity. You understand that doing a few things well beats doing everything halfway. You're no longer impressed by noise, hype, or urgency that doesn't lead anywhere. This phase also requires courage. It's not easy to disappoint people. It's not easy to step back from spaces where you used to be seen. It's not easy to let go of versions of yourself that survive by being everywhere. But growth demands trade-offs. You can't scale your life the same way you survived it. What saved you early on might limit you later if you don't evolve. Now you protect your calendar like it's an asset, 'cause it is. You protect your mental space because clarity is rare. You protect your energy because you finally understand what it costs to rebuild it once it's gone. You don't feel guilty anymore for choosing rest over chaos, structure over spontaneity, depth over drama. You also notice how peace becomes a byproduct of focus. When your priorities are clean, your mind is cleaner, you sleep better, you move with less anxiety. You don't feel pulled in 10 directions at once. You're present where you are instead of mentally everywhere else. That presence translates into better decisions, stronger relationships, and more meaningful progress. This isn't about isolation, it's about alignment. It's about making sure your daily actions reflect your long-term vision. You're no longer trying to impress people who aren't building with you. You're not trying to win every room, you're trying to win your time back. And the quiet truth is the more deliberate you become, the more dangerous you are to distractions. Because distractions thrive on access. When access is limited, so is influence. You start moving like someone who understands the value of what they're building. You stop leaking energy. You stop wasting focus. You stop confusing motion with momentum. Your priorities are getting cleaner because you're maturing into your purpose. You're learning that less can be more when it's intentional, that simplicity creates power, that discipline creates freedom, and that protecting your vision isn't selfish, it's necessary if you plan on building something that lasts. There was a time when you wanted results immediately, not because you were impatient by nature, but because the pain made waiting feel impossible. When you're sacrificing sleep, comfort, relationships, and peace of mind, you need proof that it's worth it. You want to see something move, something change, something that tells you you're not just struggling for nothing. Early on, speed feels like survival. Fast results feel like oxygen. Without them, doubt creeps in and starts asking questions you don't want to answer. Back then, every small win felt like a lifeline. You were measuring progress in days, sometimes hours, because the pressure was constant. You wanted recognition not for ego, but for reassurance. You wanted to know that the work mattered, that the time you were putting in when nobody was watching wasn't being wasted. That mindset is understandable when you're building from the ground up, when stability is still a dream and every decision feels heavy. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. Not because life got easier, but because you got wiser. You started to understand timing. You started to see that rushing outcomes doesn't speed up growth, it weakens it. You realize that anything built too fast usually cracks under pressure. So you slow down, not to relax, but to build correctly. You stopped forcing milestones and started trusting the process. You began to notice that real foundations don't announce themselves. They don't make noise. They don't go viral. They're built quietly, underground. While everyone else is chasing headlines and applause from the outside, it might look like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, structure is forming. Strength is being layered. Systems are being put in place that can hold weight when the spotlight finally shows up. That's why this settling feels different. It's not the rush of excitement that fades when things get hard. It's confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. Not hype that spikes and crashes, but clarity that stays consistent. You're not waking up every day asking if this will work anymore. You're asking how to make it work better. That's a powerful shift. You start measuring success differently. Instead of asking how fast something is growing, you ask how strong it is. Instead of looking for shortcuts, you look for sustainability. You understand that what you're building needs to last longer than a season, longer than a trend, longer than people's attention spans. That awareness changes how you move. You're more intentional with decisions, more patient with progress, less emotional about temporary setbacks. There's real evidence behind this way of thinking. Long-term studies on wealth creation consistently show that patient, disciplined strategies outperform aggressive short-term moves almost every time. Compounding beats intensity. Consistency beats bursts of effort. The same principle applies to personal growth. Small improvements repeated daily don't just change outcomes, they change identity. Over time, you become someone different, someone more grounded, more capable, more resilient. You see it in your habits. You're no longer trying to overhaul your entire life in one moment. You focus on what you can do today, then repeat it tomorrow. You stop quitting on yourself because progress feels slow. You understand that slow doesn't mean stuck, it means stable. And stability is what allows growth to stack without collapsing. Before, you were sprinting for validation. You wanted to be seen. You wanted proof that you belonged in the room. That urgency made sense when you were trying to establish yourself. But now, you're pacing for legacy. You're thinking about what this looks like in 5 years, 10 years, longer. You're asking whether the choices you're making today will still make sense when the pressure increases. You've also made peace with being misunderstood in the short term. You know that people might question why you're moving slower, quieter, more reserved. They might think you lost your hunger, but you know better. Hunger doesn't always look like noise. Sometimes it looks like discipline. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like turning down quick wins that don't align with the bigger picture. You're not racing anyone anymore. Comparison used to steal your focus. Seeing others move fast made you feel behind. Now you understand that everyone's timeline is different. You don't need to arrive first. You need to arrive prepared. You'd rather show up late and solid than early and unstable. That mindset protects you from unnecessary pressure and keeps you locked in on your own lane. The long game also taught you humility. You understand that there are no overnight successes, only overnight visibility. You respect the process because you've lived it. You've seen how long it takes to build skill, trust, reputation, and character. You know that skipping steps doesn't save time, it creates problems later. So you're willing to do the unglamorous work now to avoid costly mistakes later. This peace with the long game shows up in how you handle setbacks too. When things don't go as planned, you don't collapse. You adjust, you learn, you keep moving. You don't take delays personally anymore. You see them as part of the design. Sometimes things slow down, not to punish you, but to prepare you, to give you time to grow into what you're asking for. You also notice that your relationship with time has changed. You're not fighting it anymore. You're working with it. You understand seasons now. You know when to push and when to build, when to plant and when to harvest. That awareness gives you peace, even when results aren't immediate. And maybe the most important part is this: you trust yourself enough to wait. You trust that the work you're doing matters even when it's invisible. You trust that staying consistent will pay off even if the reward is delayed. That trust is powerful because it removes desperation from your decisions. You're no longer making moves out of fear of being left behind. You're making moves out of alignment with who you're becoming. You've made peace with the long game because you've learned that legacy isn't built in moments of excitement. It's built in years of discipline, showing up when nobody's watching, and choosing growth over comfort, and understanding that the quiet work you're doing now is laying the foundation for something that doesn't need to rush to prove itself. There comes a point where the noise starts losing its power over you, not because the world got quieter, but because you got clearer. When something settles inside you, the loudest voice in your life becomes your own. You're not guessing anymore. You're not looking around for permission. You know what you stand on, and that changes everything. You still listen, still observe, still learn, but you don't fold under outside pressure the way you used to. Trends don't push you into panic. Opinions don't knock you off balance. You've been through too much confusion, too much chaos to let uncertainty live rent-free in your mind. Early on, other people's voices mattered more than they should have. Advice came from everywhere. Criticism came just as fast. Some of it was helpful, some of it was noise, but you didn't always know the difference. When you're still figuring yourself out, every opinion feels like information. You're open, sometimes too open, because you don't trust your own judgment yet. You're searching for answers outside yourself because you haven't proven anything to yourself yet. Then life starts testing you. Loss shows up. Failure humbles you. Public doubt forces you to look in the mirror. Plans fall apart, people switch up, and through all of that, you learn lessons you can't unlearn. You realize that not everyone who talks knows. Not everyone who advises has been where you're going. You realize that if you let every outside voice guide you, you'll end up lost, moving in circles, chasing approval instead of purpose. That's where confidence comes from. Not from hype, not from applause, not from being told you're doing great. It comes from surviving your own worst moments, from sitting with disappointment and not quitting, from making mistakes, owning them, and correcting course, from watching things fall apart and still finding a way to keep moving forward. That kind of confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It just exists. You start trusting your instincts because they've been trained by experience. You've seen what happens when you ignore them. You've felt the cost of second-guessing yourself to please other people. You've learned the difference between intuition and impulse. That's important. Intuition is calm. Impulse is loud. Once you understand that, you stop confusing anxiety with urgency. Think about people who've survived real loss, the ones who lost someone close, or lost everything they built, or were doubted publicly and had to rebuild their reputation from scratch. When they come back, they don't come back louder. They don't argue with everyone. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They come back steadier, more grounded, more selective. They've learned that energy is limited, and wasting it on noise doesn't bring anything back. You see that steadiness in yourself now. Things that used to trigger you don't hit the same. You don't feel the need to react to every comment, every rumor, every challenge. You understand that silence can be a strategy, that patience can be power, that not everything deserves your response. You've learned how to let things pass without letting them penetrate. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop overreacting. You still hold yourself to high standards. You still push for growth. But you're not letting the outside world dictate your inner state. That's real freedom. Because once your peace is internal, nobody can take it from you. You've also learned that peace isn't passive. It's discipline. It takes work to stay centered in a world that profits from distraction. It takes discipline to stay focused when everyone is chasing the next trend. It takes strength to stick to your plan when shortcuts are being advertised everywhere. Peace is not doing nothing. Peace is doing the right thing consistently, even when it's boring, even when it's uncomfortable. Discipline is what keeps momentum alive when motivation disappears. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Discipline is structural. It stays. You've experienced days where you didn't feel inspired at all, but you still showed up, still put the work in, still moved forward. Those days built you more than the excited ones. They taught you that progress doesn't depend on mood. It depends on commitment. You trust yourself now because you've kept promises to yourself, small ones at first, then bigger ones. You said you'd show up, and you did. You said you'd improve, and you followed through. You said you wouldn't quit when it got hard, and you stayed. That self-trust compounds. Over time, it becomes unshakable. When doubts come from the outside, they don't land the same way because you've already proven too much to yourself. You don't need constant reassurance anymore. You don't need validation to keep going. You don't need the crowd to agree with you before you move. You've learned that being early often looks like being wrong to people who can't see what you see yet. And that's fine. You're not building for immediate approval. You're building for a long-term impact. This trust in yourself also sharpens your decision-making. You don't overthink everything anymore. You gather information, then you decide. You accept that not every decision will be perfect, but indecision costs more than mistakes. You're willing to adjust instead of freezing. That confidence keeps you moving forward while others stay stuck, waiting for certainty that never comes. You've learned to protect your mind. You're careful about what you consume, who you listen to, and how much access you give people to your thoughts. You understand that confusion spreads fast and clarity needs protection, so you choose your influences wisely. You surround yourself with people who respect your vision, not just your success. The noise never stops. Opinions never disappear. Trends keep changing. But you're no longer built on unstable ground. You build something solid inside yourself. You trust your pace. You trust your process. You trust your growth. That trust creates calm, and that calm gives you an edge. But because when others panic, you think. When others react, you respond. When motivation fades, discipline carries you forward. And when the noise gets loud, your inner voice stays steady, reminding you who you are, where you're going, and why you started in the first place. There's a moment that doesn't get talked about enough because it's quieter than success and heavier than failure. It's the moment when things finally settle and life starts asking more of you instead of less. A lot of people think the reward for surviving chaos is rest. But that's not how it really works. The reward is responsibility. And if you're honest with yourself, you can feel it. More eyes on you, more weight on your decisions, more people paying attention to how you move, even when they don't say it out loud. This is the part most people miss. They chase success thinking it's about freedom, about doing whatever you want, whenever you want. But real success doesn't just give you options, it gives you obligations. When you become stable, when your mindset is solid, when your actions are consistent, opportunity starts finding you, not because you're loud, not because you're flashy, but because stability attracts opportunity. People trust what doesn't feel shaky. They invest in what looks grounded. You start noticing that people listen more closely when you speak. They watch how you handle pressure. They pay attention to how you respond when things don't go your way. That's not an accident. That's life testing whether you can handle influence without abusing it. Whether you can carry weight without letting it change your character, whether you can stay solid when the stakes get higher. You're being trusted now with your time, with your voice, with your presence, with your example, not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. You showed consistency when it was boring. You showed restraint when reacting would have been easier. You showed discipline when nobody was rewarding it yet. Over time, that built credibility, and credibility opens doors that talent alone never will. Before, your main focus was survival, making it through, getting noticed, proving you belonged. That phase was necessary, but now the mission is different. Now it's about what happens after you walk through the door. It's about what you do when people start counting on you, when your words influence decisions, when your actions set a tone. This is where a lot of people fold, because responsibility doesn't come with applause. It comes with pressure. It comes with expectations. It comes with moments where you have to think beyond yourself. You don't just ask what benefits you anymore. You ask what this affects, who this impacts, what this builds or destroys long term. Real leaders aren't built in chaos. Chaos reveals hustle, toughness, and endurance. But leadership is revealed after chaos, when things calm down and you still move with intention, when there's no emergency pushing you forward and you still show up, when nobody is forcing you to do the right thing and you do it anyway. That's when character shows. You start realizing that winning just for yourself feels empty now. You've seen enough to know that personal success without purpose doesn't last. It doesn't satisfy. It doesn't sustain you when things get hard again. And things will get hard again. They always do. The difference now is that you're not just protecting yourself. You're protecting what you're building. That might be a team, a family, a community, a vision bigger than your own comfort. Whatever it is, it requires you to think long term, to make decisions that won't always make you popular, to sacrifice short-term praise for long-term respect. That's not easy, but you didn't come this far for easy. You also start understanding that influence is a responsibility, whether you ask for it or not. People see how you move. They take cues from your discipline, your consistency, your patience. Even people who never tell you, even people you don't know are watching. That awareness sharpens you. It makes you more intentional. You realize that slipping isn't just about you anymore. Your standards matter. This doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It means you have to be accountable. It means owning your mistakes instead of hiding them. It means correcting course instead of making excuses. People respect honesty more than image. They respect effort more than talk. When you understand that, you stop performing and start leading by example. You've also learned that responsibility forces growth. When more is expected of you, you rise to meet it. Your thinking expands. Your patience deepens. Your discipline tightens. Pressure stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like purpose. You understand that weight builds strength if you carry it correctly. There's a reason life doesn't give responsibility to everyone at the same time. Some people want the spotlight but can't handle the weight that comes with it. They want recognition without accountability. But you've already proven you can hold steady. You didn't fold under pressure. You didn't abandon your principles when things got uncomfortable. You didn't lose yourself chasing approval. Now, when opportunities come, they're not random. They're responses. Responses to how you handled the unseen moments. How you treated people when you didn't need anything from them. How you stayed consistent when nobody was tracking your progress. That's why the trust feels natural now. You don't feel overwhelmed by it. You feel prepared. You're not here just to collect wins anymore. You're here to build something that lasts beyond the moment. Something that still stands when trends change, when attention shifts, when moods fade. You're thinking about legacy now, even if you don't say it out loud, about what remains after the excitement is gone. That mindset changes how you move through the world. You're more patient with people who are still figuring it out. You're more protective of what you allow into your space. You're more intentional about how you use your time. You understand that every decision either strengthens or weakens what you're building. Responsibility also teaches you humility. You realize you don't know everything, that you still have room to grow, that learning never stops. But instead of that making you insecure, it grounds you. You stay open without being easily swayed, confident without being arrogant, strong without being rigid. This phase isn't loud, it doesn't come with fireworks, it feels steady, purposeful, heavy in a good way, like something real is being constructed. You feel the weight, but you also feel capable of carrying it. That's how you know you're ready. You're not just chasing success anymore. You're accepting responsibility for your path, for your influence, for the example you set, for the future you're shaping through your actions today. And that shift is what separates those who have a moment from those who leave something behind that still matters when the moment passes. So if you're seeing this and things feel quieter, but heavier in a good way, don't panic. That's not the end of the struggle. That's the beginning of structure. Something is settling because you've earned the right to move forward with clarity instead of chaos. Stay patient. Stay consistent. Stay loyal to the vision that carried you this far. This phase doesn't need applause. It needs execution. And you're ready.